I was reborn on the very day my parents divorced. My younger brother insisted on staying with Dad and told me to go live with Mom. I knew what he was up to. He had also been reborn, and was jealous of the life I'd had in my previous life as the president of the Hughes Group. He wanted to take my place. He was smug about it, but I nearly laughed out loud. Did he really think he could just leave the Hughes family so easily? Was it really that simple? In my past life, after Dad retired and stepped down from all his positions, I officially took over the family business, becoming the sole leader of the Hughes Group. I became a rising star in the business world, living a life full of success and admiration. Meanwhile, my brother Johnny Hughes flunked his SATs, refused to find a job, and fell into a cycle of drinking and gambling. He drained Mom's savings with every scheme he could think of, only to lose it all at the casino. When Mom could no longer give him a single cent, he started using the money I sent for her support to fuel his alcoholism. In his drunk rages, he even hit her. Under this constant strain, Mom, who was younger than Dad, looked like she had aged 20 years. When I found out what had been going on, I brought Mom to live with me. Johnny, pretending he was just visiting Mom, showed up at my place, shamelessly asking for money. "Teresa, congratulations on becoming the CEO," he said with a smile. "I'm a little short on cash right now." "You're doing so well. Surely you can lend me a few $1,000,000? I sneered. "I bet you want that money to gamble again, don't you?" Over the years, I'd sent so much money to support Mom, only for it to be squandered by him in casinos. Just then, Dad, who was visiting my company, coughed a couple of times. "Teresa, Johnny is your brother. Don't be so harsh just for a little money." Johnny's face lit up when he heard Dad speak up for him. But I kept my face cold, showing no sympathy. "Last time, Dad, you said the same thing. I paid off all his gambling debts and then gave him even more money. And now you're asking me for the same thing again as if I'm an ATM? If I had a choice, I'd rather not have a brother like him." Johnny was caught off guard by my sudden decision to draw a line with him. His face turned as red as a beet. Dad, unable to stand my defiance, went pale with anger. "So, you won't even acknowledge Shirley's son, huh? Johnny is your real brother. How can you treat him like this? I see. You've gotten too big for your britches and want to push us all away, don't you?" I stared at him in disappointment. "Dad, I've called you Dad out of respect for how you raised me, but your actions are truly disappointing. To you, I'm not even your daughter in the Hughes family. I'm just here to manage the money for you and your two sons, right?" Dad's face turned red with anger as I hit a nerve. "You think you can just hold on to the Hughes family fortune forever, but one day, you'll get Ma. Right. When that happens, you'll belong to someone else's family. Your brother will be the only one left to rely on. What's the harm in patching things up with him now?" I was so frustrated by Dad's shameless reasoning I nearly laughed. He was trying to trick me into believing he was looking out for my future. He honestly thought that? With his spoiled eldest son, Johnny, and his second son, who was on his way to being just as useless, what were they ever going to do for me or the company? Johnny, listening to this, suddenly seemed to have an epiphany. "Ah, so this is why Dad doesn't care about me anymore. It's you. You vicious woman, who stole all the Hughes family wealth. You don't care about your own brother, and you treat Dad this way. The Hughes family is doomed with a woman like you. We've hit rock bottom." Listening to his self-righteous speech, it almost sounded like I was some kind of scheming woman trying to steal the Hughes family's fortune, instead of the hard-working person who had spent years building a small company into a large corporation. I didn't want to argue anymore. I simply decided to show them the actions of who was really in charge of this company. I had the security escort Johnny out. Johnny struggled violently, his eyes bloodshot with rage, staring at me with a look full of hatred and resentment. "Teresa Hughes. A cold-blooded, heartless, and vicious woman like you doesn't deserve to be my sister. If I could live my life over, I'd make sure you'd never ruin the Hughes family again." I smiled and waved my hand at him. "Sorry, but I only believe in the present. The present is the only thing I can control. Anything like rebirth is just wishful thinking." But what I never expected was that Johnny really seemed to believe I was the one who ruined his life, blaming all his failures on me. He even went so far as to get drunk, grab a kitchen knife, and sneak into the company's underground parking lot to take my life. I was caught off guard while getting into my car, and before I could react, he stabbed me 7 times from behind. I collapsed onto the ground. I lost so much blood that my body began to feel cold, and my vision blurred into darkness. But I could still hear Johnny's crazed laughter echoing in my ears. "I'll make sure you pay for trying to steal the family fortune. Do you think you can look down on me as a CEO? Everything in the Hughes Group is mine. I'm going to kill you, you bitch who's stealing my inheritance." As I was on the verge of dying, I couldn't help but feel frustrated. I thought he was insane. If I had known, I would have sent him to a mental hospital long ago. My dad's little company grew to this scale because of me. I thought, the inheritance he was supposed to get was all gambled away long ago. What does that have to do with me? At least when I'm dead, the property will go to the lawyer. Most of it will be donated, and the rest will be given to my parents monthly. He won't get a penny. With that thought, I sank into complete darkness. I didn't know how long it was before I regained consciousness. When I opened my eyes, I found myself back in the old house where we used to live as a family of 4. My mom was holding a suitcase, looking helpless as Johnny, now throwing a tantrum, refused to go with her. He was crying so hard he could barely catch his breath, desperately grabbing onto my dad's suit. "Dad, I don't want to live with Mom. She doesn't have a job. She's just a housewife. Can you really let me suffer like this?" My mom stared at him, shocked and unable to believe her once beloved son was now speaking so cruelly to her. I watched coldly from the side, feeling a bit amused. It was sickening to see such a young boy with that much malice and calculation in his eyes. It was like forcing a filthy adult into the body of a young person. If I still couldn't tell that Johnny had also been reborn, I would really be blind. I could see my dad's hesitation too. The truth was, he obviously wanted his son to stay with him, to carry on the family line. But he had always played the role of the stern father, and Johnny, who had always been closer to his mother, insisted on staying with her. At first, after the divorce, they lived relatively well with the alimony and property split. But when Johnny failed his SATs and couldn't find a job, he turned to drinking and gambling. All the money they had couldn't fix the mess he'd made. It wasn't until he saw me on the news that he realized our small family business had turned into a huge corporation. Regret hit him hard. That was when he started showing up at my door, shamelessly claiming that the Hughes family's wealth should be shared with him, too. Although my father realized that this son had been spoiled beyond help, he couldn't bear to see him suffer. So, at my father's request, I gave Johnny the inheritance that was rightfully his ahead of time. But a gambler was already in a bottomless pit, and money never stayed with him for long. Soon, he demanded more money from me, but how could I keep footing the bill for his gambling habits? It was probably from that moment on that he began to resent me, and he was willing to go to extreme lengths, even to become a murderer, just to make me pay. Now, as I stand at the crossroads of fate in Johnny's eyes, I finally understand his logic. His thinking was simple. If he had stayed by Dad's side, he would have inherited the entire massive Hughes Group, and I would have had no connection to the family fortune. I would have had to live off the Hughes family's generosity. But I had underestimated the cruelty of human nature. When Dad finally relented and told Mom that both children would stay with him, Johnny threw another tantrum. "I don't want to live with my sister." He pointed at me, his eyes red and swollen, as if looking at an enemy with a blood feud rather than his own sister. "My sister has never liked me. If she YS here, there won't be any place for me in this family. She'll bully me." Dad kept reassuring him that he would always be his most beloved son and that nothing like that would happen.